Thank you. While I unwind my power cord and take care of this business. Quite suspenseful, isn't it? I'm trying not to show my rear end as I bend over. It's obviously I'm not doing a very good job.
We don't mind.
You talk, you talk about out of the box, Lynn. That was great. Some amazing ideas and fast and furious. I just got a badge that came up a moment ago, and it's garbage night tonight. You all probably are happy to need to know that, don't you? Do we have a lavalier mic? We do. Is it working? Does everybody know? Okay. How about this? No. Yes. Ooh, pardon me. Let's see if I can manage this. The little monitor work here. Cool. I was sticking my rear end outward when Dave asked the question, how many have been to boot camp? I kind of caught the tail end of that. Could I see that again? That really is stunning to me. Thank you for being there. And here as well. What a great event this is. Lynn, this is just first class all the way. And thank you for, I feel like I'm dressing up here in front of everyone, which in fact is what I'm doing. I'm done dressing. Forrest Gump leadership. I've long made the assessment, come to the conclusion that IQ stands for very little and that knowing how to think stands for much more. So that is the foundation of this topic, of this title. I'm going to give you a little bit of quick tour about what it's like back home for us, who we are. Kids First Sports Center is our operation. Our brand transitions. We started this whole gig in 1973, that's a lot of years ago. 1975 is when we incorporated and became visible to the U.S. government. 1998 is when we rebranded from Queen City Gymnastics to Kids First Sports Center. So any of you that know us as Queen City Gymnastics in the competitive arena, it's all one entity. There's not two entities there. We are a relatively large organization. We're big there. That's how big we are. You see that little red square there? That's the size of our first operation. So I'm going to give you a little quick pictorial tour, a little history of Kids First Sports Center. That's where it started in 1973. We spent, as Generation 1, we spent a couple years there. Here's the original faculty and student body of Kids First Sports Center. How about that? There's the stained glass window in the background. We used that little multi-purpose room and put a couple blue and tan Nissen panel mats out. Many of you are familiar with that. There's our organizational chart in that era. This is what we call an abbreviated hub and spoke. One spoke. I did have an assistant on occasions there. All right, generation number 2. All right, we spent 2 years there. This was a leased facility. All of these locations, by the way, are all within a good stone's throw of Kids First Sports Center. So we've not changed demographics to any great degree. So we have evolved, and all of these evolutions are within a mile and a half of one another. 2 years we spent there, leased facility. There, now that's the more stereotypical hub and spoke organizational strategy. Can anybody relate to that, either now or in your past? I think probably most of us can to a degree. Has its advantages, and disadvantages. Generation 3, 5,800 square foot. Now we are getting to more of a hierarchical organizational strategy, as you see there. Generation 4, that's the 15,000 square foot brown box designed by me. In that era, we didn't spend a lot of time or attention on aesthetics. Organizational chart in that era. Generation 5, that's a 6,000 square foot addition that allowed us really to begin into second, third, fourth products, at which time our organizational chart changed to include those additional products there. Generation 6, that's the original Kids First Sports Center, 86,000 square feet. There's the 22,000 square foot addition of Generation 7, and our current organizational chart. So you can see a little bit from our charts about how we have changed things around. We have an operation, it's about 9 miles. We started a second operation called Kids First 2. Small, back to our roots, 7,000 square feet, just recently expanded to 12,000 square feet. And then the campus. The campus is our newest addition. It's been about 16 months ago. It's an early learning center. It's been very successful, and I know why. That's why. The secret to starting your own preschool is to have a family of 5 with all the kids living in the area and 9 grandchildren. I never can keep, we're still 1 grandchild short here, so I never have an up-to-date photo. Bob Hubbard and I are kind of in a race. Bob's winning, but we're catching up. So I think I got a book coming out soon here. You want to start your own, that's how to do it. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Forrest Gump leadership. Forrest knew how to think. Give me any day a room full of Forrest Gumps, and we can make one bang up of business. He maybe didn't have a lot of raw horsepower. He didn't have the IQ, but he knew how to think because his mama taught him. And so that's the gist of what I want to share with you. And the question being, are you teaching your employees, your management team and beyond, are you teaching them how to think? Or are you training them how to teach the cartwheel or the backstroke or whatever? We spend far more time teaching people how to think than we do how to do anything specific. And that goes for any level of our operation, I might add, too. So, are you teaching your folks how to think? Now, in research this talk, Penny and I drove down to Savannah, Georgia, and looked up Chippewa Square because I wanted to see the bench. How many of you remember the bench? Anybody not seen Forrest Gump? Okay, that's one. No, not right. Okay, 1. Well, yeah, it's a good movie. I wanted to see the bench. I was really disappointed to find out that the bench didn't exist. It was a movie prop. So there I am. I wanted to sit on the bench, get my picture taken. So I had to stop my research on Forrest Gump, and I kind of focused on finding the best place to eat and good wine. So that's where my research for this talk ended, back down in Savannah. But I did come back home and I started some research. And what I did was, as I asked our DLs, I said, of all the stuff you've learned in your tenure at Kids First Sports Center, what has had the most impact on you professionally, and in some cases, perhaps personally? And so I got back some very interesting responses. We'll go through a few of them. Let's see here, looks like Sean, it's our boys team DL. And back home, that's the same as your manager, perhaps. We have department leaders. So that's what a DL is for us, a department leader. It says the top 3 things: to be proactive with parents and staffing, to know and understand your critical numbers. Now you understand, and I mean this with all love in my heart, Sean is nothing more than a dumb coach. Now I can say that because that's exactly what I am. I've learned a little since then. So all of us at Kids First, for the most part, started as dumb coaches. In other words, we didn't know much about business. Well, there's Sean, one of our newer DLs. He's saying, boy, I understand now about critical numbers, how important that is for me to manage my program. That's a huge milestone in my mind for Sean. And then do the greatest good for the greatest number. We proudly proclaim ourselves to be a fairly socialistic kind of business. I'm not a fan of socialism for a political arena. Ann's laughing. We had discussions last night. But I am in the business to degrees. All right. Let's see. Jen, think it through. Avoid knee-jerk decisions. Share openly. You're going to see that word a lot here, and I'm going to talk about it. Share openly. Share what? Share information. Share your experiences. Most important thing I've learned, I don't have to do it all. All right? That's a hell of a lesson to have to learn, isn't it? I think all of us have, to one degree, have struggled through our learning in that. I certainly did. I'm an engineer by education, which is, I don't admit that to anybody but friends, but engineers are not known for their lack of control. They, like Lynn, the control freak, self-professed control freak, well, engineers are as well. So I learned that lesson, came by it the hard way, I should say. All right, here's one from Joni. This is one of my daughters. You have to do it on your own, make mistakes. Embrace those snarly, challenging situations that you're inevitably going to run up against because it makes you a better leader. Embrace it. Don't avoid it. Embrace it. And include people in your decision making. Inclusion. You want to get buy-in. You want to get alignment. We want to include. So these were the top 3 things that she had learned, and she is the director, I might add, of the campus. Pete, our facility DL, return on investment. You've got to constantly look for the best ROI when you're trying to spend the company's money wisely or spend your own time wisely. This was a milestone moment for Pete to be able to explain this back to me. You understand, everything we're talking about here, everything I've shown you here, is stuff we've taught to them. And they're now telling me, or us in this case, what's been most important for them, most powerful for them. Steve Anderson, the quote that you introduced me 2 years ago, reasonable people given the same information are highly likely to come to the same conclusion. Therefore, why not share information more openly rather than close to the vest? Open book management, for instance, which is very much a tenet of our operation. Examples how this has helped me, the purchase of the Euro trampolines. He used my tactic on me, so we sprung for 4 brand new Euro trampolines about a year after we started in business at Kids First. Getting the team parents on board when scheduling adjustments, and gaining support among Ohio coaches in my role as the state chair. Here we have Katie Huffman. In terms of parties, my staff often has to make their own decisions of the moment. I've tried to teach them to think about what is best for the birthday family. Make it the most memorable day ever. Laura, this was our HR and accounting, Laura. Would you raise your hand? To communicate concerns openly without exaggeration, drama, or hyperbole. Openly, matter-of-factly. And that includes avoiding the buddy system. If you got a problem, go to the horse. If you got a problem, come only to the person that can solve the problem. Don't go to your coworker and massage one another's hearts to ratify and validate my ill feelings about the new healthcare plan or whatever the case may be. Go to the person that can solve the problem. Skip all of this other stuff and eliminate that drama. Rachel is here too. Rachel, our new hospitality DL. When delegating responsibility, you also must delegate authority to go with it. The decision-making power now resides with you. If you have the responsibility and you don't have the decision-making power, you're guaranteed a very frustrating experience for that individual. Oh, this from is Bob Unern. Oh, Bob chimed in with this, and I don't necessarily think he learned this at Kids First, but he chimed in anyway. I think the best thing you can do when you sit with a junior leader is to ask, what do you think? Share the thoughts on the issue, gives you the opportunity to ratify and validate the parts that you agree with, and then to discuss and look at alternatives of those parts that you don't agree with. Here's a little stroke count of all of the responses. 3 individuals spoke about what we call our unifying principle number 4, which is open, straightforward, forthright communication. Not in your face communication, but open, straightforward, no drama. Now, 2 had concerns, spoke about addressing concerns, and here's the continuing, very simple concept. We talk about this continuum often. Concerns turn into problems, and problems turn into crises. As I tell every DL, please come to me when you have a concern. I am very good at dealing with concerns. I frankly hate dealing with problems and certainly crises. And so there's a simple concept, but two of them were most impacted by that. Managed by the numbers, our key performance indicators. Do the greatest good for the greatest number. You don't have to do it all. Think like a leader. Kind of a broad category, but an interesting one at that, and I'll speak about it at the end. Mistakes are good. They're needed. They're necessary. A different concept for some businesses, very much built into the culture, to the fabric of our operation back home. Embrace challenges. Don't just accept it, but embrace it. Embracing a challenge is what makes you a better leader next time. ROI, priorities, open book management, and inclusion. So there's the responses. All of these thoughts are concepts that we teach to our people. And I venture to say that very few of them would be able to articulate that or would have come up with these answers had we not trained this. This is not who they were when they came to work for us. This is who they became as a result of our training or of their, and when I say training, I'm not talking about that there's a formal moment to train any one of these items. But it is built into our fabric and is trained at every moment. It is trained in formal settings, but it's also trained and probably more valuable in the informal settings, the teaching moment, as we call it oftentimes when we're dealing with children. All right, I'm not going to deal with each one of those. We don't have time, but I want to talk about a few of them, and then hopefully my plan is to have some time for questions at the end. ROI. I remember the first time somebody said something about, what's the ROI there? And I said, what's that mean? He said, well, it means return on investment. So it was a new concept to me. I know where I was sitting. I know what bar I was sitting at, literally. It was at Bennigan's in Cincinnati. I was embarrassed that I didn't know that in that era. I should have. Bottom line is, our people don't understand ROI. We teach them about ROI. Let me share with you the thoughts that we teach, if you will. All right, whoops. Let's go back there. Never back up, right, Lynn? All right, I want to address two concepts here in terms of ROI, actually more, but two main concepts. And the first is I want you to think like a retiree or one getting near retiring. Now, Jet I was kind of chuckling at Jet's talk this morning when she got to the 60-year-olds. And I thought, well, this is kind of pertinent. I want you, even though you're 25 years old or whatever the case may be, I want you to think like a retiree. And then I also want to introduce 8 words that I want them to become your habit. So I want this to be part of your everyday moment when you're assessing how you're going to spend your time on the job. All right. The retiree's mantra goes something like this. There's only so much. Resources are finite. They end. They don't go on and on forever. When we talk about resources, let's talk about personal resources and company resources. Personal resources are time. We have decisions to make about how we spend our time. Our physical energy, our emotional energy. Physical energy is related to how many hours of sleep we need in the day, right? And when we get physically exhausted. All of us can relate to that. Has anybody ever run out of emotional energy in a moment or two in your life? I think someone has. And money. We have finite dollars. Similarly, our company resources, our employees' time, our employees' physical energy, emotional energy, the company money that we have decision-making authority over spending. And then space. What's the best use of that space? I just stepped one step ahead. So here are the 8 life-altering words for you to make them your habit. And as an employee of Kids First Sports Center, that's my suggestion. It's very simple, what is the best use of my resources? What is the best use of my time? What is the best use of the company's money? What is the best use of my physical energy, and so on? What is the best? What's best be? Well, best implies, does it not, that there's some sort of judgment that's going on or weighing. It's very seldom that you only have one alternative in life, right? When you get up in the day, you have a lot of options in how you spend your time. So you have to say, what's the best use of this moment? What's the best use of my company's finite dollars? What's the best use of that room over there, that real estate? It's soccer right now. Maybe the best use of that is going to be cheer. And that's a recent exercise that we went through. So what is the best use of all of these finite resources is the habit that I hope for you. Now let's look a little bit more at best. What does it mean? Now, first of all, what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't mean that it's the right thing or the correct thing to do because you've been taught that or told that by someone else. That has no bearing on it. It means that it doesn't mean you're supposed to. Does anybody have that little, or should do something? Does anybody feel like, is that like fingernails on the blackboard to you like it is to me when somebody says, oh, I should have done that? Or I'm supposed to do, supposed to according to who? Okay, who? What? Should, supposed to. Those don't play into what's the best use because it clouds our thinking. Here's more what it does mean. It means this. Here's words to substitute. What's in my best interest? What's in your best interest? What's in your best interest relative to, and by the way, I hope it's understood that what's in your best interest is very much and closely aligned with what's in the company's best interest. If you're one of the individuals in the world that thinks that those two thoughts are in opposition, then you frankly can't work here. So we have already forged through that in the hiring process, but we know that we have employees that know what's good for the company is good for me. That's not something that we have to beat into people. So that's an understood as we're talking about this. All right, so what's in your best interest? Anything, if it's something, a thing, a time, a choice in how you spend your time is in your best interest, then that's something that you want to do, isn't it? That's something that a healthy person wants to do. I think it's all in our best interest to do the thing. It is what we want to do is in our best interest. All right, let's strip this down. Return on investment. What does it mean? All right, it means that we are intentionally giving up, strategically giving up some part of a finite resource in exchange for a potential reward. That's the law of risk-reward that life is made of, business and life. So when we're looking at return on investment, it is the intention. I intentionally am going to give up these dollars. I have these dollars safely tucked away in my mattress or in my account or whatever the case may be. And I am going to deploy those dollars in hopes of some reward. Or put it in time terms. I'm going to give up the next hour to work on such and such a project because that has a reward for me. Correct? All right. All right, this exercise is, I'm probably back in the back, you can't see this, or let me ask that. Can you see it from back there? Okay, this is not too, anybody math phobic in here? If Penny were here in the room, my wife would have her hand up. She's math phobic, okay, who had their hand up? All right, and somebody had your hand up, go ahead and yell out this answer. It's not that tough. But no putting you on the spot, sometimes it short circuits your brain. I get in that situation. I can figure things out pretty good until somebody says, okay, what's the answer? And then I freeze. Who wants to venture? What's 5% of 100,000? 5,000. Okay, 5,000. How many years does it take me to become whole if I have a 5% ROI, 5% return on investment?
Compounded?
No, not compounded. Don't go there, JR, thank you. We're doing simple math here. 20 years. You take the $100,000, you divide it by the $5,000, 20 years to become whole. I knew somebody would do it. I should have known it was you. That would have been, if I were in the crowd, that would have been me. I understand. All right. Okay, well, I want to get into a rhythm here. So what's the answer here? 10,000. How many years to become whole? 10 years. All right, two more. 20% return on investment. How many years to become whole? 5. And let's just do one more for fun. All right, 33%. 3 years to become whole. So we understand the math and the concept. All right, let's put it to work. Real life example that happened a year or so ago at Kids First Sports Center. Our dance, we subcontract our dance program. So our dance subcontractor, Patty, came to me and she said, by the way, you talk about numbers phobic individual, to the max. Fair statement, Laura? So she came and she says, I need a new dance room. My program wants to grow and I need more space. She says, I got an idea. She said, we had some square footage, which is finite, up on our mezzanine. It was built out as an imagination. Any had their hand up at boot camp? Remember the imagination area, half wall? Okay, gone. We wiped it out as a result of what I'm about to show you. She said, well, let's just put up some walls on top of those half walls, and I can then use that to say the space was not being used effectively. I could use that as a dance room. Well, I know a little more about construction and code and so on, and I knew that wasn't going to fly. And I explained that. I said, Patty, I said, you just can't do that. So I said, but I do have an idea. So I explained to her, I said, maybe, what if we do this? What if we wipe out those half walls, get rid of the imagination, and then build some Class A space there? Okay? It's far more expensive than what she was envisioning. She said, well, and then we'll move martial arts from the west wing, which is kind of a hidden area, a lot of space, but a hidden area. We'll move it into this new space, which is more visible, be good for martial arts, and then you can have that room for your fourth dance room. Oh, boy, that's great. I said, okay, well, here's how it works. And so I made a phone call to my contractor. I explained what we wanted to do, and I said, can you give me, and I have a very good relationship with a particular contractor for obvious reasons. We've done a lot of business with him. So I called Scott. I said, Scott, can you give me a per square foot approximation budgeting number? And I explained what I wanted to do there. And he said, yeah. So he gave me a figure of 37 feet. Now, we timed 1,600. And I sat down with Patty as we're doing this. So I'm explaining this to Patty. And she understood it. That's important. And I said, so about $60,000. That's going to be our budgeting number. So let's do the feasibility study on that. The feasibility study goes something like this. Okay, we got to have $60,000 to build the room. We're going to put in this new dance floor. That's another $15,000 for a total of $75,000. Let's say, now here we go into a variable. Let's say that the company wants to have a 3-year return, a 3-year payback. We want to become whole in 3 years if we're going to invest that. We divide that $75,000 by 3. So we need, from her dance program's growth, we need $25,000 a year of additional gross profit dollars. Not net revenue, but gross profit dollars, because we have to figure out what the company is going to realize from that. So it becomes real simple math here. If we divide that by 12, then we find out it's $2,000 in change. Now we're going to go and we're going to find out about the tuition of a dancer. And the blended tuition, depending on whether it was an entry-level dancer or a more advanced dancer, was going to be $79. Now, our gross profit on the dance program is 50%. Now, that's because we do a revenue share of 50% with Patty. So it's real easy math right here for that. So to divide that 75 or multiply by 50%, that's $37 per child. All right, and she's following along. So by the way, I should ask, is everybody getting that? Is anybody that be happy to go back? All right, that means we need additional enrollment of $56 or 56 students. So Patty, you have got to figure out, can you get 56 students plus, and can you prove it to me? In other words, Patty, now you have to, for the first time in your life, do projections. And so what the way that worked was like this Henry Kissinger story that I heard about. I don't even know it to be true, but that is one of Henry Kissinger's aides was to prepare a report for Mr. Kissinger, and he prepared the report and handed it to him. And Kissinger looked through it and says, "Is this the best you can do?" And he handed it back. Guy took it back, redid the report, brought it in, handed it to him, and Kissinger looked at it again and says, "Is this the best you can do?" And the guy took it off in a huff, redid the report, threw it down his desk, and says, "This is the best you can do? This is the best I can do?" And Kissinger says, "That's all I wanted the first time." So we went through a very similar situation with Patty there. I don't understand what you're doing here, Patty. Patty's not a numbers person. She's under the gun. Her husband is an accountant. I don't know about how well that works, but so she and her assistant and Tom, her husband, finally got some numbers together that gave us a pretty good bet that she was going to be able to grow her program enough to generate an additional $25,000 a year for the company. Because the company said, we are happy to do this project with a 3-year payoff. One might say, well, that's awfully rich to expect a 3-year payoff. I'd say, yes, it is. Now, here's why. One, it's not an appreciating asset. We're not building real estate here. Well, yes, we are building walls. Well, everybody knows that that is not going to enhance the value of the building. So I'm considering it an appreciating asset, a capital improvement, if you will. Under those conditions, the company's going to shoot for a 3-year payback, knowing that sometimes you don't hit your numbers. Has anybody ever hit that? That gives us a margin of error. So if we shoot for a 3-year payback, and we were to get, let's say, a 5-year payback, here's the same data with a change. If we get a 5-year payback because we got 34 students, is the company happy? Yeah, the company is fine with that. But the company doesn't want to shoot for a 5-year payback and then end up with a 12-year payback. That is not what? The best use of our company's money. Our company has X amount of money. It is not infinite. It is finite. We must find the best use of that money, and we feel pretty comfortable that it's going to be hard to beat a 3-year payback. So we are willing to deploy, take those finite resources and allocate it to this new project at a 3-year payback, and we won't cry over a 5-year payback. Maybe even 6 or 7, we're not going to cry over that. But we don't want this 10 and 12-year payback, because we have what? Better uses. What's the best, not what's a use for the company's money, or can the numbers work? No. What's the best use of it? Why? Because it's finite. All right. Soccer, stagnant. Cheers, demand to grow. Maybe that space that used to be our basketball room, and it's what started out as basketball, then went to our soccer room. All right. And so now we're saying, what are we asking ourselves? Is that the best use for that real estate? Right, it's about a 5,000 square foot room. Is soccer the best use? And we were beginning to have our doubts. Soccer was used to be, we had the only instructional soccer program in town. That was the heyday. Things have changed since then. Everybody's teaching instructional soccer to youngsters. So we went through a very similar, and I'm not going to go through all the numbers here in the name of time, but we went through a very similar assessment about the build out. If I could push this button any faster, I would. About the build out, you all can follow along if you're there want quick enough. Same concept. The only difference is, and I will add this in, is we had gross profit from the soccer program of 40 grand. So we had to replace that. So we had to add that in as if it was a true cost. Because we're willingly saying goodbye to soccer, and we're setting aside $40,000. So we have to recoup that as well as the cost of the capital improvement. Same concept, the same 3-year payback. We need 59 additional cheer students. Or if we wanted to accept 5 years, it would be 49. All right. Now, there's 2 final concepts I want to bring into this while we're still talking about ROI. Lynn, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to awake you. Yeah. Can I buy more? All right. How much? All right, thanks. All right, I want to talk about lost opportunity, and then I want to talk about needs versus wants. All right, that's a big deal. Lost opportunity, what's that? Well, I implied it before when I said we're not looking for can these numbers work, because the numbers could work at 12 years. And we didn't lose money. We didn't make a lot, but the numbers worked. Our cash flow got better. We didn't go out of business or anything like that. So, but we can't think that way. We got to think what's the best use. And that's where I bring in this concept of lost opportunity. Whenever you let go of a finite resource, you don't have any opportunity to get it back. When you let go of 5 minutes or that hour I was talking about, it's gone. It's gone. So you now have lost some opportunity. So you must factor in, and it's not necessarily can you always put dollars to it. But when you're making financial decisions or time management decisions, you must factor in the concept that the minute you let go of this chunk of finite resource, you've lost opportunity to do something else with it. And as our ability to deploy our money, and think in terms of ROI has gotten better over the years, we have to be more judicious about how we do that because we have better opportunities. Then the other concept is needs versus wants. A business has no wants. It has only needs. An individual, a person, you have needs, and then you have wants. Fisher, I went to Orvis, said I'm going to look nice for the conference here, for Lynn's conference. I bought a new shirt at work. I need a new shirt like I need a hole in the head. I wanted this new shirt. Say, had nothing to do with need. A business can't afford to think that way. Theoretically, a business, every dollar it spends is because it needs to spend it. So if it needs a pencil, you buy a pencil. If you want a fancy-dancy photo op machine like John was just telling me about, okay, it's because at the end of the day, there's likely to be a return on that investment. So an individual has wants, a business has only needs. So how do you evaluate wants? Let me tell you what I have come to do in recent years. And that is I look at, now we're talking about me, but I'll offer this because you're also individuals, not only are you business decision makers. I look at anything that I buy, if it's of substance, and I will equate it to my net worth. Many people look at if they want a new car, they look at the new car or the cost of the payments of the new car, and then how much money they have at the end of the month, and will that money that they have left accommodate the additional payments, right? Right? So they're looking cash flow, and they're making a decision, can I afford this want? Now, I learned that the folly of that, I wish I'd learned it a decade or two earlier, but I learned the folly of that some years ago. I now look at it, now, by the way, if your cash flow isn't there and you're going to finance something, obviously that has to be considered, but I don't ever use that. Now that cash flow is there and is not a problem for me, I now look at the net worth. And if I want to take the family on, and you saw the family, okay, on a vacation, then it's going to be a chunk of change. And I might be hesitant, because it's a big number, and I might be hesitant to do that, frankly. But so this way of looking at it actually gives me courage, gives me the, well, my goodness, Jeff, that vacation is only, 0.001 of your net worth. What does giving up that 0.1% of your net worth, does that weigh more or less than the fun and the valuable and the family together? And so that's what I look at there. I recently bought a Porsche, much to Penny's dismay. Like a dummy, I announced it at last May's boot camp, and Penny didn't even know it. Yeah, you're right. Who said, oh? I didn't think it would be like that, but it was. She's gotten over it, by the way. I'll just show you. Well, I could have gone out and bought a $30,000 transportation vehicle, right? Frankly. But I like cars. I like to drive, actually. It's not. And so, I wish I didn't even have a Porsche badge because I don't like the pretentiousness of it. But I tell you what, when you drive that machine, that's a fun machine to drive. So there's a luxury premium, if you will, right? I got to have a horse. I got to get from work. But that's all I need. So I subtracted the $30,000 that I could have spent for the Camry or whatever it might be, and the difference. And I took a look at the difference, and I said, and I equated that to the net worth. I said, go get the horse. So that's how I look at my wants and take a look. So because you can't look at it in the same way that you do with needs and return on investment. So that's how I've learned to look at things there, to equate it to the net worth. All right. Now, I talked about time management and how that relates to this concept of return on investment. Okay, well, Forrest wasn't real smart, and I don't think he learned to read. Because remember when he met his son, and he asked, is he smart? And Jan said, He said yes, and he's the best reader in the class or something. So Forrest never learned to read. So we're going to talk about ABCs here because that would be important to Forrest now, wouldn't it? So what do we mean by ABCs? Okay, here's what I mean by ABCs. How many of you have a time management system? How many of you who have your hands up have a time management system that lends some way of prioritizing your options? Let me share with you, so a handful, a small handful. Let me share. Is it not fair to say there's more shit that needs to be done in a day than what you can accomplish when you're in the business world? Is that a fair statement? That means we have to weigh, here we go back to, what's the best use of my time? Now, if every day you got everything done and then you had some time left over, we might have to go through this exercise. But most of us have more tasks than we do time. So we have to say, what's the best use of that time? The best return on investment. Here's my method for doing it. It's ABC. And an A task is a vitally important forward-moving task. It moves me forward in my life. It enhances my life. Now, or the business. And I think about kind of both of them together, but that not necessarily do you have to think that way. Does it move me forward in a substantial manner? A B task is an important forward-moving task. Not as important as the A, so it's a matter of degree, right? A C task doesn't either. A C task is a sustaining task. It keeps you from backsliding. How many of you do payroll? Okay? Is payroll the stereotypical C task for you that I think it is? It has importance. But does it move you forward in your business? Or simply sustain you and keep you from backsliding? Most folks would have a little problem if they failed to pay payroll. So payroll is a C task. What happens if you work only on C tasks your entire week and month and year? Do you move forward? Does your business change for the better? Or you simply have, hopefully, kept from backsliding? And I'll make an argument, because it segues into the next point, is that if you're only keeping yourself from backsliding, you're going to backslide. Because what happens is boredom sets in. When boredom sets in, complacency sets in. When complacency sets in, apathy sets in. And apathy is the single greatest reason that people leave one business and go to another. Because the company appeared to them apathetic. So the company that works to only keep from backsliding and works on C tasks day in and day out in the name of maintaining the status quo is actually going to begin to backslide. Lenny, you never told me how much time I had. That's a penalty. Making mistakes. We talk literally 1 minute, or are you just joshing me? Okay. Pardon? All right. I talk about, well, I want to talk about making mistakes. As employee at Kids First, your duty is to make mistakes. Some people find, I've had people say, you don't really say that. I say, yes, I do. I've had other people say, well, you don't really mean that. Yes, I do. And then I've had people say, well, you're not telling the truth, you're lying. And no, that's the way it is. Now, I can't say in recent years have I had anybody say you're lying. But I have in past years, I think our industry has changed dramatically. The idea is, why make mistakes? If you're as an employee and you only do that which you know how to do and you never step outside of that comfort zone of what is very comfortable for you, are you making any change in a positive direction? You're staying exactly where you were. If you're going to improve, you must step into the unknown to try something new. And stepping into the unknown means you're going to blow it somewhere. That's what a mistake is. When you go about doing something, this is the Trinity. Responsibility means making decisions that are in your best interest, that bring joy and harmony into your life or your business over the long run. There it is. A mistake, here's a Trinity. And my argument is that whether you're a teacher, a coach, or a business leader, or a parent, that if you don't grasp this, that you're going to, it's not a little mistake. You're going to blow it big. Responsibility means making decisions that bring harmony and joy into your life over the long run. Doing what's in your best interest, enlightened best interest, I might add. A mistake is when you go out doing something thinking the results are going to be desirable. And oops, it wasn't. Raise your hand if you've ever made a mistake. Now let me tell you, if you're going to encourage your people to make a mistake, you better well tell them what a mistake is not as well. A mistake is not when you go about doing something with reason to know that what you're about to do is going to bring pain upon you or the business, yet you go ahead and do it anyway. One person might call that self-sabotaging behavior, and that's not a bad word for it. I call it irresponsibility. It's exactly the opposite of what responsibility is. So the business leader, the teacher, the coach, the parent that treats a mistake like irresponsibility or irresponsibility like a mistake is going to blow it and blow it badly. A mistake is cause for applause, and irresponsibility is cause for dismissal. So we've got to know the difference and intuit it in here. Now, I am done here because Lynn says so. Lynn, tell me about the handout protocol, because I want to get handouts into everybody's hands. Oh, not paper handouts, but electronic handouts. Okay, that's great. Cool. So I promise you that I will get you this information plus a little bit more. And I thank everybody for your time. Thanks for being here at the summit, too.